care for this land and continue to shape our township. We show our respect and will continually honor the treaties that were signed as we consider our decisions and actions. This morning, there is a public meeting scheduled for 1 consent application and 2 minor variance applications. And I note that if you wish to be notified of the decision of an application on this agenda, please add your contact information on the sign-in sheet if you're here, or at the back of the council chambers, or submit an email. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the Secretary-Treasurer will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise as to the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any other information that is relevant. The Secretary-Treasurer will summarize any correspondence on file, and from there, the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to pass, defeat, or defer the decision for the applications. The consent application schedule for this morning is number B24-04 for 7 Joseph Street in Mactier. And the minor variance applications being considered this morning are A24-31 for 306 O'Hara Point Road and A24-34 for 610 Duffys Lane. And before we begin, I would ask committee members if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none. You would have had an opportunity to look at the minutes from our previous meeting, and I have a resolution moved by member Jarvis and seconded by member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of July 12, 2024 as circulated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The resolution is passed and the motion is carried. Oh, yes. And Madam Secretary, can you explain how the notifications were sent?
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each of the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you. And the resolution for the first one. Our first application this morning is B24-04 to the planner, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. As you stated, the first application on the agenda is B24-04 for 7 Joseph Street. William Cooper is the owner of the property. Sorry, I just got to move this because I can't see. There we go. The property subject to the consent request is comprised of 0.20 hectares and having a frontage on Joseph Street in Mactier. The property is comprised of 2 whole lots in a registered plan of subdivision being registered plan M112. The portion of land that is proposed to be severed and merged with the property to the north, known as 13 Joseph Street, is comprised of 0.046 hectares with a frontage on Joseph Street of 9.15 meters. A consent application was submitted to the township on August 31st, 2021, and approved by the Committee of Adjustment on November 12th, 2021, for the severance of a parcel of land from 7 Joseph Street to merge with the property to the north known as 13 Joseph Street under consent file B2109. Under Section 5341 of the Planning Act, once provisional consent has been granted by a Committee of Adjustment, the conditions of consent must be fulfilled within 2 years and a certificate of official issued by the Secretary Treasurer, or the consent is deemed refused. The last date for completing the conditions of the provisional consent for consent file B2109 was November 12th, 2023. The consent has lapsed and the owner is requesting that the previous consent be considered again in file B2404. The justification behind the request is to increase the size of the property to the north and include the existing driveway to 13 Joseph Street within the property boundaries. As you can see on the screen, I did note that the proposed consent application does conform to both the District of Muskoka official plan as well as the Georgian Bay official plan, as the subject lands are within the urban center boundary. It is the staff's opinion that the proposed boundary adjustment does meet the intent of both the District of Muskoka official plan and the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. Both the subject lands and the benefiting lands are currently zoned as R4 in the zoning bylaw. The proposed lot addition does bring the benefiting land into compliance with the minimum lot frontage requirements as per the zoning bylaw. As stated previously, the application was previously approved in 2021. Staff are recommending approval of this application based on a review of the relevant policies, as the proposal is consistent with the provincial policy statement, meets the intent of the District of Muskoka official plan, Township of Georgian Bay official plan, and will actually bring the properties into conformity with the zoning bylaw upon the boundary adjustment being approved by the Committee of Adjustment. Staff are of the opinion that the application has appropriate regard to Section 53 of the Planning Act and represents good planning.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been any correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Hydro One with no comment or concerns. One letter was received from Bell Canada with no concerns. One letter was received from the chief building official stating she has no concerns. However, the building on the portion to be severed to torn down or included in the benefiting property. One letter from the Director of Operations stating he has no issues with the application, and one letter from the District of Muskoka was received stating they have no objection.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant present or online, and do they wish to address this committee on this matter? Okay, if you are, please raise your, if you're online, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting. Okay, I see no one, so I will close. And is there any member of the public, either online or in person? If they're in person, we can't see them, so I will close the public session portion of the application review and bring the matter before the committee for any questions or concerns. And Member Jarvis.
Just a quick question. Do we have any idea why there was a delay in getting this filled out, finished off?
Through you, Mr. Chair. From my understanding, talking to the applicant's solicitor, it just sort of fell through the cracks. The gentleman that owns the property had all intention of fulfilling this, but unfortunately, I'm not sure who dropped the ball on the issue. It's the exact same application that was done previously. And I know when they first applied, it was just the end of COVID as well. So I honestly don't know the full intent on what happened, but someone dropped the ball somewhere.
No, it's just interesting because I would think that the owner of the benefiting lands would be kind of anxious to get that.
My
that
thoughts
property.
exactly.
But okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Matthews, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby grants provisional approval to the consent application B24-04 for a boundary adjustment as shown on the Schedule A, subject to the following conditions. One, that the owner provide property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property subject to this decision. And two, that a draft residence reference plan be completed by an Ontario land surveyor and a digital copy filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. Three, that a copy of the deposited reference plan be provided to the Secretary Treasurer. Four, that a draft transfer be prepared by a solicitor and submitted to the Secretary Treasurer in preparation for the creation of a certificate of official describing the parcels created by consent. And five, that all fees and disbursements, legal, engineering, planning, if any, incurred by the township with respect to this application be paid for by the respective owners. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The resolution, the motion is carried and the resolution is passed. Thank you. Our next application is a minor variance application A24-31 for 306 O'Hara Point Road. To the planner, please.
Through the chair, the property is located on Trent Severn Waterway in a bay of Gloucester Pool, having an area of 9,348 square meters or 2.3 acres and a frontage of 61 meters. The lands are designated waterfront within the district and township official plans, containing high to very high archaeological potential, a shoreline with type 2 fish habitat, and are located within a deer wintering area known as Stratum 2. There are no significant natural heritage features on or adjacent to the subject lands. Just one moment. I'm just trying to get the slides working. The property contains a detached dwelling, walkways, and 2 docks. Mature trees, low-lying vegetation, and granite rock occupy the front yard, while majority of the rear yard is forested. The existing docks will be removed. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw to facilitate the construction of a boat port having a width of 9.75 meters or 15.98% of the lot frontage, whereas a maximum width of 9.15 meters or 15% of the lot frontage is permitted. The applicant has received a permit from Parks Canada. The boat port has a width of 9.75 meters, a height of 3.76 meters, and a length of 7.92 meters, containing 2 slips for a boat and a personal watercraft. The proposed boat port has regard for the aesthetic quality of the waterfront area and maintains the character, as it will be constructed with materials and colors that blend in with the surrounding landscape as required by Parks Canada. It will be 1 story in height and the only shoreline structure on the property. Planning staff are recommending approval for the reasons outlined throughout the associated report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence on this application?
One letter was received from Severn Sound Environmental Association stating they have no natural heritage comments and no policies in the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Plan would apply, as the property is outside of the Severn South watershed portion of the township. One letter was received from the chief building official stating the docks shown on the site plan were constructed with no permits required for all construction. And one letter was received from the director of operations stating he has no issues with the application.
Thank you. I see Mark Faucher online. Would you care to offer any comments in addition to what the planner has provided?
Everyone, Mark here. No further comments unless there's questions, other than just a quick thanks to the staff of the township head office who were very helpful for me as a first time going through this process. So quick thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public? I see none present or online. So seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And is there, Mr. Jarvis, Member Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. And through the chair, to our planner, and the planner and I, just so everybody knows, I was back and forth there because I was trying to figure out exactly where on this piece of land this boathouse was being proposed, because the diagram to me didn't correspond with the photograph. And could I just ask that we pull the photograph up, the overhead, and can you tell me where on that photograph I know you have to put the pointer on it, but somewhere I'd like to know where it's being proposed in relation to that photograph, because the point of land as described in the application, when you get down to the bottom, looks a lot different than the point of land in the photo overhead. I think I've got it right. Yeah. So there's another. You had another one of the overhead, Shania. Is that okay? Well, that's the point, right? That point doesn't look like the point in the survey. I thought it was really weird geography. If you look at the survey, yeah, I know. I looked at the survey and I've looked at everything, and it just things don't seem to correspond. I understand. I have no problem with the application, but it just didn't seem to line up properly for me. Because when you look at the Google Earth portion of this, the point of land doesn't seem to look as prominent as it does in the survey. I guess it's just a matter of how things are drawn.
Member Predko, you had something to add?
You're not on.
It's just, I think that looking at the survey, the point that we see on the survey is land that they own underneath the water from before Gloucester Pool was flooded. So
okay.
there are lots in the Gloucester Pool where people own land that's underwater.
Sure,
and this is, I think, one of those
Yeah.
instances why the survey doesn't look the same as the photos.
Anyway, it was just a matter of clarification. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Member Predko, for pointing that out. I wasn't aware of that either, but yeah, I see how it goes. Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, I will read the resolution. Moved by Member Predko, seconded by Member Schmidt. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the following variance requested under minor variance application A24-31. 1, that a boat port having a width of 9.75 meters, whereas section 4.1.13.1 permits a maximum width of 9.15 meters. Subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner provides a property tax certificate or correspondence from Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property. And that 2, that the proposed boathouse be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And 3, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of the decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the resolution is passed. Our final application is minor variance application A24-34 for 610 Duffys Lane. To the planner, please.
Thank you, and to the chair. As mentioned, the next item on the agenda is minor variance application A24-34, with the property being 610 Duffys Lane. The purpose and effect of the application is to facilitate the construction of a deck with a front yard setback of 22.9 meters, whereas section 6.5, table 6.7 allows for a minimum front yard setback of 30 meters and a front yard encroachment for a deck of 7.05 meters, whereas section 4.20 permits a front yard encroachment of 4 meters. The subject property has an area of 33.23 hectares or 82.11 acres with a frontage of 193 meters onto Myers Lake, south of the community of Mactier. Most of the property is in a natural state characterized by dense vegetation. The property is zoned Shoreline Residential 5, Exception 1, and designated as waterfront in both the district and the township's official plan. The property also abuts a fish habitat type 1 and a fish habitat type 2 zone. As previously mentioned, most of the property is in a natural state characterized by dense vegetation. The detached dwelling on the property is mostly hidden from the shoreline. The proposed deck will be located above the area with patio stones. The property was built with the intention of adding a deck, as seen by the patio door already present leading to the future deck. The location of the proposed deck is shown hatched in gray. The deck will not extend past the front of the dwelling, as it will be constructed within a recessed portion of the front wall of the dwelling and will be built similarly to the existing deck located at the rear. The property is located within the waterfront area designation in the District of Muskoka official plan and waterfront in the township's official plan. The property is zoned SR5-1 or Shoreline Residential 5, Exception 1, with a small portion of the property being zoned environmental protection wetland, approximately 450 meters north of the dwelling. The property is serviced by a private road and has water access. A detailed analysis of the development proposal against the 4 tests of a minor variance is included in the associated staff report. Based on this analysis, staff are recommending approval of all variances. The committee can either approve or deny the requested variances and could defer the application to a later date if additional information is required to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has there been correspondence in this application?
One letter was received from the chief building official stating she has no concerns with the proposal, and one letter was received from the director of operations stating he has no issues with the application.
Thank you. I do not see the applicant present or online, nor do I see any members of the public. Oh, I see a member of the planning staff raising their hand.
Sorry, the applicant is present. I think they just raised their hand. It's Martin Coutts.
Christian just raised his hand. I'm just pulling him over now.
Okay. Okay, I see a login called Christian.
Hello.
We see your video if that's possible to turn your video on.
There we go.
Thank you. And could you identify yourself with your first and last name, please?
Martin Coutts.
Okay, and how are you involved with this application?
I'm the homeowner of that of the property.
Okay, do you have something to add to what the planning department is?
No, I'm just available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you check again to see if there are any members of the public that wish to address the? Okay, there is no member of the public, so I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or concerns. And Member Predko, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, just a question to the planner or possibly even the homeowner. As is visible in the pictures, there is already a hardscape patio in front of this door, and it looks like the elevation is very flat. And I'm assuming then the deck that they're asking for to replace this patio will just be on the on the ground. There's not gonna be any elevation whatsoever.
Thank you, and through the chair, the deck will be a second story deck. So as displayed in the
Oh, I see.
PowerPoint,
I see.
it will be below the second story door.
I didn't realize there's
Yeah.
two patio doors.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Matthews, you had a question?
I apparently have the same thought pattern as member Petco, so it's been answered. Thank
Okay.
you.
And member Jarvis? Thank you for that.
Appreciate that you suggesting I might have a question, but in fact, I do have one inquiry, and there's a statement in the report that I thought was very, very interesting. I just want clarification on it, but I can't find it now, so maybe I'll take it up with staff afterwards. It's not a big deal.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by member Matthews, seconded by member Hazelton. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A24-34 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 as amended for 610 Duffys Lane to facilitate the construction of a deck with a front yard setback of 22.9 meters and a front yard encroachment of 7.05 meters. The above noted approvals are subject to the following conditions. First, that the owner provide a property tax certificate or correspondence from the Township Financial Services indicating that all property taxes have been paid up to date with respect to the property that is subject to this decision. And that the proposed deck be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions as set out in the application and sketches submitted and approved by the committee. And finally, that the appropriate zoning certificate and building permit be obtained within 3 years from the date of decision from the township, only after the committee's decision becomes final and binding. All those in favor, please indicate. All right, let's hold everything. And what was your point?
When you start reading the recommendation, my question came up. To the planning department, the paragraph, the third paragraph in the recommendation that the proposed deck be substantially and proportionately in conformity with the dimensions set out in the application. Does that mean that there can be some deviation from the actual sketches, plans, and application when this thing is actually built?
Through the chair, we've seen instances where it's not. I think our previous recommendations were that it's the exact plans, but some things have come up in construction phases where it's deviated, say, 0.5 meter or 0.3 of a meter. We just say that so if that's the case, they don't have to come back to the committee of adjustment to re-get a whole variance for something that's changed minorly. So that's the new wording for our standard conditions.
But this is a minor variance committee, right? So at what point do you guys decide that it is not substantially or proportional? I mean, that it is not in conformity with the dimensions set out in the application. How do you determine one way or the other? I presume it's up to the planning department.
I would say it's a by case basis. If it was deviating more than a meter or more than 2 meters, then I would say we would go back to the drawing board. But each minor variance or approved minor variance would still get reviewed by the planning department at the building permit stage. So at that stage, we would see that it is substantially in conformity with what we had approved.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Whitler, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, if it might assist, that language, it's not intended to pertain to any deviations from the variances themselves that are requested. It's more design variation. So if the committee considered as part of their the application a set of building plans that showed, a particular building elevation that showed a certain type of siding and window shape, and once the applicant gets to the building permit stage, their designer has changed something like that. We want to ensure that there's reasonable flexibility for those sorts of changes, but certainly to Mr. Donaldson's point, if there's something that pertains to the variance itself or perhaps a mitigating factor related to the variance, like if the variance relied on the presence of some sort of landscaping and then the applicant changed their plans at building permit stage and shifted their building, and that important tree that was going to be a buffer is now going to have to be lost. That's a situation where we would say, oh, hold on, this is no longer substantially and proportionally. So we're not allowing for flexibility on the variance, but it's other external factors where we would ask the committee to entrust staff to ensure that if there are any changes, they're minor and they don't impact what the committee considered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I will read the resolution. Again, we're all good with it? All right, then I will then call for a vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried unanimously and the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a further resolution moved by member Jarvis and seconded by member Predko. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 10:32 a.m. until September 13, 2024 at 10 a.m. or the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion is carried and the resolution is